Welcome to the Lone Zebra podcast, where I share my nitty-gritty health story and what I learned from the School of Hard Knocks. Things that doctors will never tell you. Hi, I'm your host, Diane Lalomia, and I'm glad you're here. We zebras need to stick together. Today's episode number 009 on the Lone Zebra. Let your light shine. We'll be talking about circadian rhythm. We'll also be talking about the low histamine diet. Want to stay tuned for that. And we'll be talking about light therapy and what it can do for you. Stay tuned to learn more on the Lone Zebra. Thanks for listening. Today we're talking about circadian rhythm. Well, what is it? I've heard of it, but gee, what do you mean by that? Circadian rhythm is the waking and sleeping cycle that you adopt. It's the original one where the farmers would rise with the sun and go to bed with the sun. It's a matter of a natural rhythm to your day. It tells your body when to wake up and when to go to sleep. It also dictates your levels of cortisol, melatonin, and other hormones and enzymes and things happening in your body that you don't even know are going on. But it all is determined on the wake-sleep cycle that you keep and how in tune are you with your body and messages it's trying to tell you. Are you having trouble falling asleep at night? Are you having an issue getting up in the morning? These are things that you might want to look at the information I provide today on the circadian rhythm and how you can adapt to make your body happy and make waking up refreshing and going to sleep a dream. Reading from the book Women of Purpose, a daily devotional for discovering a meaningful life in Christ by Sarah Daigle. We're on day 30. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Matthew chapter 5, verse 13 through 16, ESV. I pressed my forehead against the plain window as the evening sun blazed across the heavens. Lifted into the glorious, so far above the earth below, makes me want to throw myself all over again into something and someone so much greater. The largeness of Christ amazes me. How he takes me and all that concerns me into his hands, time and time and time again. But I cannot believe how small my own brain is. My thoughts excluding the great and good for the pitiful and narrow. I look around at people instead of God. My smallness makes me think that largeness consists of people and how they affect me, when it is God, and how His love changes me. On all fronts, we thirst for approval, affirmation, and love. We want to do, believe, live in such a way as to gain intimacy with those who touch our lives. We look around instead of up. And when we do, God and His ways become vague to us, perhaps even dubious. It's as if we truly are daughters of Eve and need to reckon with the fact that when humanity fell into sin, it would take a miracle, a rebirth, to make us aware of what is really true. For the truth to burn, even sear into our very souls, that life is not as it appears. The tangible must give way to the spiritual. The world around us is passing. People are a shadow, and culture changes. That earth and our humanness will pass away, and people live for such an incredibly short time. We really are a breath, a puff across the expanse of a greater picture. Why in the world are we so taken with the earth? It's easy to say as I glide through the heavens and stare at the vast, endless blue yonder with the sun blazing orange across the sky. But what about tomorrow as we all wake for another day? What about that random person who needs love to wear shoes, to have hands and feet? What about that child who will be drawn to our faith, not by our frustrated efforts to live righteously, but by seeing the effect Jesus has on our lives when we replace our love for the passing with His heart? God is real. There is a reason we drive our cars, go to work, eat our food, have good times, and all the while we know we are created for something greater. It's because we really were. And I don't know about you, but I would rather stake my life on something that always was, presently is, and always will be. Allow the infinite to permeate the finite. Allow the Creator to determine the created, and no mortality is but for a season before immortal life is offered us. Lord, thank you that we get to stake our lives on something eternal and let your light shine through us. Amen. Before we introduce the low histamine diet, a few overall dietary considerations that we want to discuss is when we talk about eating plans, we need to stop and think of salicylates found in plants, preservatives, and medications. Some people are sensitive to salicylates. Then we also have nightshades, which are present in potatoes, peppers, tomatoes, and eggplant. There's also candida, which sources include malt, vinegar, simple sugars, carbs, yeast, fermented foods. Histamine, which is higher in aged cheese, alcohol, fermented or smoked foods, and more. Galactose alpha 1,3 galactose, or also known as alpha-gal, found in beef, pork, lamb, venison, and they may be present in dairy, gelatin, and some medications. Oxalates, found in foods that may increase a risk of kidney stones. Salicylate intolerance is a topic that is growing in interest in the literature. Salicylates in their natural plant-based form offer beneficial health effects and anti-aging, antioxidant, and anti-cancer properties. A variety of fruits, vegetables, teas, herbs, and spices contain natural salicylates. Synthetic versions are also present in fragrances, cosmetics, and medications. The most notorious salicylate containing medication is aspirin. Symptoms of salicylate intolerance include wheezing, urticaria, rhinitis, headaches, palpitations, irritable bowel syndromes, joint pain, and potential neurophysiological symptoms including anxiety, depression, panic attacks, restlessness, inattention, and irritability, making it difficult to distinguish from classic MCAS symptoms at times. Now, my specific issues, and you'll hear me discuss about it fairly often, is I have to be mindful of candida, histamine, and oxalates. Yeast is my biggest problem. I used to think I was gluten intolerant. Tried the gluten intolerance, the gluten-free diet. Found out that I really did better on gluten or flour instead of the other alternatives because of the oxalates I ran into. Almond flour, almond milk, high oxalates. I was also eating spinach for salads because I was avoiding the bread in sandwiches, trying to change the diet there at lunch. It became problematic for me. So those are things to take in consideration when you're following the low histamine diet. Another thing I see oftentimes is people getting down to just a handful of foods. They're eliminating so many foods. And the problem that I see is that more often than not, it's because somebody said, well, this list you need to really go off of, and you can't eat anything that's high in histamines or is histamine liberating, and you can't eat this and you can't eat that. And then they found that it just dwindled down to a diet that they could count on one hand of foods that they can tolerate. That's not healthy, and it takes a long time to introduce those foods back. However, that being said, if you do have reactions, you don't want to continue eating something you know is irritating your body and causing you to go into a problematic health spiral. This is what is known as a personalized diet. What is good for one person may not be good for another. I just recently had an opportunity on Facebook to encounter this situation where someone asked, what do you eat for breakfast on a low histamine diet? Well, nobody bothered to figure out the other components of the situation, but at the time I was having my teeth extracted and I was on soft foods only. I couldn't eat. For about a month, I couldn't eat normally. So my food choices were narrowed down even further. So when I replied back that I had this shake that included a banana, oh my, that's high histamine. I was reminded it's high histamine. However, I made it with coconut milk, cherries, and blueberries were, I think, also in question. But you see, the thing is that I don't have problems with bananas or blueberries. I don't even have problems with avocados. I don't have problems with histamines if I have gotten the inflammation down and readjusted my diet. I've been able to introduce some of these foods back that may have caused me problems before. But I've been going through this since all my life, since I was 2 months old, actually 2 weeks old, dealing with problematic eating. So I have only listened to my body. I haven't used lists. I haven't followed doctor's orders because doctors still don't know anything about this stuff. I listen to what my body tells me. And another thing that I find is very helpful when following a low histamine diet, MCAS specifically, dealing with medications or any other changes that you do in your lifestyle, your diet, etc., make note of it and do it slowly. Food journals can be your best friend because, quite honestly, I don't know, I always remember what I ate for breakfast, let alone what did I eat 3 days ago or 2 days ago. Gee, did I have a snack or what day was that? The thing is you keep a journal and write it down so that as your transit time may vary, you'll know you're normal, you'll know what works for you, and you'll know what foods are causing you problems. Once you've identified certain foods, then remove them for a while. But after you have an opportunity to address some of your root issues and calm things down, then it's always good to reintroduce slowly some of these foods that you may have had reactions to earlier may now be tolerable. So don't take a list like the Holy Grail. It's for guidance. The best thing you can do when following a low histamine diet is to start out by identifying foods that you've eaten recently, eliminate those high histamine foods for a while, and concentrate on eating low and even a few mediums here and there. But don't eliminate 2/3 of the foods out there because they might be medium histamine or high histamine. Let's just take a small portion out of your diet and see if we can't calm things down. And if we have to keep whittling a little bit more and investigating more, we become a detective and we figure out what's our bliss point, as they say in the food industry. What is it that makes our body happy? I always say I only eat the foods that love me back because life's too short to be miserable because you were tempted by that sweet thing. That cookie or that cake, that actually many of them have come to the point where I used to drink sweetened iced tea because I was from the South and that's what we did. But then after I cut back on the sugar because I realized I had a problem, now I couldn't drink that sweetened iced tea with all that sugar in it for anything. It gags me now. Your tolerance level changes. You no longer want that much sweet. It becomes nauseating. So it helps you to be refraining from those foods that you know aren't good for you. It makes it just a little bit easier. And it's not quite so tough when you know where that love balance is with your food. This is just a reminder that I have a ton of show notes out there. You can find them at dianelalomia.substack.com. Check out the Lone Zebra and the episode number. It's all there. You'll find it. But you'll be missing out if you don't take a chance on checking out the show notes. I have links to all these websites, books, materials that I refer to on the podcast. Plus, I have extra bonuses of videos that I've done, things that are just a practice in mindfulness that I did last year that I wanted to share with you so that you can have a few minutes to relax and enjoy. I also share some links to blog posts I've done on more in-depth research I've done, more on a scientific, nerdy or geeky level. For those that aren't into the science, just ignore those extra blog posts and just stay tuned to the podcast. I try to keep it fairly simple. For those people that understand the biochemical reactions and understand or want to understand or learn more about nutrition, I've got all that material out there for your reference. And you can have fun diving deeper and learning more. You know, they say curiosity is the greatest thing for a genius to evolve. It takes wanting to know the why to learn more. Have fun. We've been talking about the different causes for histamine intolerance, and we're on cause number 4 is gut infections. Those would include Helicobacter pylori, SIBO, Candida, and in small intestinal fungal overgrowth, parasites, and we'll talk a little bit about each of those. Helicobacter pylori, the symptoms might include, but are not limited to, the following: nausea, frequent burping, bloating, unexplained weight loss, loss of appetite, abdominal pain that's worse when your stomach is empty, an aching or burning sensation in your abdomen. Many of the population has H. pylori in their stomach, but only if some people have a problem where it becomes a problem with undigested food particles that are allowed to stimulate allergic reactions. The bacteria literally drill tiny holes in your gut, exposing you to all the dangers of leaky gut syndrome. H. pylori infection has also been linked to lower stomach acid levels, fatigue, parasites, mineral deficiencies, autoimmune disorders, liver problems, and a host of other issues. It tends to get worse over time if not treated. So if you suspect that you have an H. pylori infection, please see your medical professional and get tested and treated accordingly. SIBO is the next condition that we'll be talking about as a cause for histamine intolerance. SIBO is a condition when the mechanism that usually prevents the buildup of bacteria in the small intestines fails to work, leading to overgrowth. Although you're supposed to have a small amount of bacteria in your small intestines, you're not supposed to have the bacteria that resides in the large intestines. And when you have SIBO, you have what's kind of a backup of your plumbing, where the large intestines bacteria backs up into the small intestines, causing mayhem. Some of the symptoms of SIBO include the following: abdominal pain, bloating, diarrhea or constipation. Diarrhea is more common. Irritable bowel syndrome or irritable bowel disease, weight loss, fatigue, malnutrition, skin issues of acne, eczema, rashes, or rosacea, asthma, depression, or food sensitivities. With SIBO, histamine is related in such a way that the certain types of gut bacteria have the ability to produce histamine. So when a person is dealing with SIBO, the gut microbes in their digestive tract get way out of balance. And the bacteria creates histamines and makes an imbalance where the DAO enzyme may not be able to keep up with all of that. And it leads to gut dysfunction and histamine buildup where your bucket gets full. Root causes of SIBO could include different factors. Certain medications, such as immunosuppressant drugs, proton pump inhibitors, they can cause SIBO, and it can be caused by abdominal surgery, celiac disease, diabetes, diverticulosis, and pancreatitis. Aging can be another contributing factor simply because our digestive system starts to slow down, and in addition, low HCl levels can be an underlying cause of SIBO. Functional medicine practitioners oftentimes test for SIBO and often include the test that tests lactose breath test. There's some that are mentioned in the book. I highly suggest you get this book because there's such a wealth of information. The candida is another problem with the small intestinal fungal overgrowth. And the classic symptoms for this is craving sweet foods, having bad breath, a white coating on the tongue, also known as oral thrush, hormone imbalances, chronic fatigue, weakened immune system, frequent gas and bloating, brain fog, joint pain, decreased sex drive, frequent urinary tract infections. Please keep in mind that these symptoms can also be attributed to other problems, so it's important to see a medical professional and get tested. Small intestinal fungal overgrowth is known as SIFO, S-I-F-O, is another type of fungal overgrowth that Chris Kresser, a leading expert in functional medicine, and a few other practitioners are starting to talk about. This condition is similar to SIBO, but it's fungal instead of bacterial. This can be tested as well and treated. The root causes of candida are different, but mostly are taking antibiotics, especially for long periods of time, and that's one of the main contributing factors for candida overgrowth. Everybody has candida in their body, but certain medications can cause it to become a problem, or, like I said, eating too many carbohydrates or sugars. Taking birth control pills is another key risk factor and why some women experience more frequent yeast infections when taking birth control pills. Another one is oral corticosteroids can contribute to candida overgrowth. Other candida risk factors include having diabetes, a weakened immune system, or an autoimmune disease. Candida may be able to trigger histamine release because, as with any infection, the immune system responds and histamine is released. So, studies have found out that if you have a candida infection, it can trigger mast cells to release mediators while trying to kill off the infection. There are tests for candida, and you'll need to see a medical professional. The importance of diet is very important. When you're dealing with candida, you want to avoid sugar, alcohol, and refined carbohydrates. These all feed candida overgrowth and must be removed from the diet in order to bring the infection under control. Replace these foods with whole, nourishing, low histamine and anti-inflammatory foods to combat candida infection. Supplementation for candida is recommended, and some of these would include a coconut oil as being one of the popular options for fighting a candida infection because it's rich in caprylic and lauric acids, which acts as natural antifungals. Certain extracts can also offer enhanced effects. Oregano and thyme oils are two different herbs that are used to support the immune system and fight off an infection, which is why they're so beneficial with those with candida overgrowth. Make sure to check with your healthcare provider before undertaking any of these alternative medications or treatments. Biofilm disruptors. Yeast can form a biofilm to live in, and it's harder for your immune system to get to the root of the problem, if you will, to get rid of the excess yeast because the biofilm disrupts the ability for the body to deal with it. Some other herbs that you might want to discuss with your health practitioner to possibly work as far as botanicals for candida is cat's claw, uva ursi, Chinese skullcap, pau d'arco, coptis, berberine, Oregon grape. Not many of us want to talk about this, but it's something we need to, because parasites can come from your own backyard. It doesn't have to be from a foreign country. It can come in water supplies. People don't think about parasites as being non-visual, but they are. They can be protozoa and yeast, not just worms. So you got to think about a lot of different things, like traveler's diarrhea. You've heard of that. Well, that's a parasite. So worms are parasites, though, that can be from contaminated food sources like unwashed fruits and vegetables and uncooked or undercooked meat. If parasites aren't treated and they go long enough, they actually can cause damage to organs. So you want to have a test and try to remove a parasitic infection before it gets too much. Symptoms of parasites. Symptoms could include digestive health issues such as diarrhea, constipation, nausea, gas, and yeast infection, chronic allergies, skin issues, anxiety, depression, confusion, fatigue, weight loss, appetite changes, both a loss of appetite or feeling like you're not able to satisfy your hunger, anemia, rectal itching, circles under the eyes, bad breath. Many of the symptoms that you get with parasites are because the parasites steal the nutrients that you consume, therefore leading to your malnourishment. Such symptoms such as digestive distress may be directly caused by the infection itself, but remember to look for symptoms and test, don't guess. Parasites can be tested by your healthcare professional. Things to perhaps fight off parasites that are good to keep in your diet are raw garlic, beets, pomegranates, carrots, coconut oil, and coconut may not be okay for those with histamine intolerance, but some people are fine with it. If you're able to tolerate apple cider vinegar, we've run out of time for today, so we'll get back to it next time. Today's featured music is Abide in Light, performed by Joy Spring. Enjoy! All information in this podcast or on the website, blog, or in newsletters is for educational purposes only and not intended to be construed as medical advice, diagnosis, or prescription. Please seek the help of a medical professional to get treatment for your particular condition. Thanks for listening to the Lone Zebra podcast. Don't forget to check out the show notes at dianelalomia.substack.com. That's Diane, D-I-A-N-E, Lalomia, Lalomia.substack.com. Music on the podcast is provided by Epidemic Sound. See the show notes for featured music and artists. Don't forget to share this podcast with your family and friends, especially fellow zebras. And don't forget to rate The Lone Zebra on your favorite podcast app so others can find me. Until next time, blessings. Have a great day.